Jobs got revised way down. Let's talk about it on Today in Mortgages. Hey, Dreamers, welcome back to the show. We're talking about what's real, what's hype, and what should actually be paying attention to out there in the world of mortgage and real estate news. It's Today in Mortgage, and Rich, we're going to jump right into it today. Big news on the job side. Tell us what happened.
A lot less jobs than we thought. Actually, 818,000 less jobs.
That is a lot of jobs. And so we're going to talk about why that matters to us and what we should be thinking about when we hear that. We're going to look at an article today. There's a million of them out there. You can look. We're going to look at one from CNN.com. It says new data shows U.S. job growth has been far weaker than initially reported. And Rich, it's that report that we are going to talk about first. Tell us real quick how the reporting happens and if these adjustments are kind of a normal rhythm to these reports. Let's just talk about that first.
Yeah, well, it's the BLS report, the Bureau of Labor. And what they do is track non-farm, well, they track all labor, but this particular report is non-farm payroll, mainly private payroll. And, you know, when you talk about revisions happen to every single report because they're taking data month to month to month. And then when you put it all together, there have been changes. There was a revision from a few months ago that they got to, account for. And, when these reports have been coming in, Michael, some of them have been revised like, oh, well, it turns out we didn't lose as many jobs as we thought, or this kind of thing. But when it all gets to the summary, because this is from April of 2023 to March of this year, that's the data set that this is all based on. So it just means we only added little over 2 million jobs when we thought we added 2.8 million jobs. I mean, it's still a lot of jobs, but it's just not as big as the Fed thought it was.
And so these revisions, like you said, are kind of a normal happening after the fact, but this revision is significant because of how many jobs we got adjusted down to. And Rich, let's talk a little bit about, the decision making that's been happening based on these jobs reports by the Fed.
Well, yeah, they've been kind of slow rolling their cuts because they were like, man, the job market is still super strong. That has been the whole thing. It's all about, remember, employment, and the economy. And when you're making decisions based on things being so good, they're like, why cut? Like, things are still hot. So this adjustment is likely to encourage the cut for sure, even though it's baked in. The bond markets already believe it's happening. So it's already seeing the improvement, but maybe it's 50 basis points instead of 25. So that would make a significant difference. And if we got Jackson Hole, that's the collection of all the folks, all these analysts and economists and, the Fed people, they're all attending. And right now I'm watching on CNBC and they're interviewing a lot of guys. And it's come out that many of these Fed presidents wanted to cut in July. So I think for sure we're going to see cuts. It's just how many we will see in 2024. Maybe we're going to see 3 cuts. That would be great.
Yeah, how many and how deep the cuts are going to be, right? And so, like you said, this is a significant adjustment down. And it's even more important because of how those jobs have been perceived in that decision-making process for the Fed to drop rates. And so in the combination of inflation coming down below that 3% mark, which is a kind of a milestone, it's not yet to 2, but we're getting lower, and these job reductions, it just feels like those rate cuts have got to come and that we don't want to wait too long, because if things cool off too long, we get in that big R word recession, and no one wants that. So Rich, as we kind of, sit back here and run the world from our podcast, obviously, like, can this reporting and the way they collect data be done differently or more effectively? Or is this just kind of the nature of the game with how we collect these things?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like herding cats. It's all private payroll data. It all depends when they report the data, if that data is sound, because it may not have been through an audit. Maybe they only audit the information every quarter. That kind of stuff happens when you're talking about private payroll. And that's mainly what this report is about, is private payroll. So I don't know. I don't know if they can do better. You can always say a government agency can do better for sure. And they likely can. But again, they do have to rely on the data that comes up to them. And if that data isn't accurate, then they're just working with bad data.
So there's obviously been a lot of hand wringing in the media about this, but this is, like you said, something that happens on a regular occurrence. These things get adjusted
Yeah.
down. This was a big adjustment, but ultimately it all points to, like you said, what we've been seeing already in the economy, and that's just more signs pointing towards those rate cuts. So we're excited about that. So as we're looking at this, Rich, we obviously saw the big adjustment. Is there anything within the data that really jumps out to you?
Yeah. 356,000 of those jobs that were revised were from professional services. So you just, you're just watching the news, you're reading Google laying off 10,000, you're talking about all of these professional jobs that are being cut. That's where the biggest part of that adjustment was. So,
Hmm.
it wasn't like manufacturing was down, I think maybe 100,000, like the revised 100,000 down, but still a lot of manufacturing jobs were added. That's great for your average worker, a non-professional worker. We want to see growth in manufacturing for sure. As a country, we want to see that because we're making stuff, and that's a good thing.
Good point, Rich. And as you said at the top, this was a revised down, but we still have a net gain in jobs over
2
that
million
same period.
jobs we've added
Yeah.
April
So,
2023 to March. So it's a lot of jobs for sure.
well, Rich, thank you so much for kind of enlightening us on this, breaking it down for me. I know it's helpful for me, and it's also helpful for all of our people here inside the network to hear from you every day. And that's something we really appreciate, that Rich and other leaders in the company are always training us. So if you're interested in knowing more about how to be a part of the best network in mortgage and get coaching like this every day, click the grow link below. We'll get you all that information. Hey, Rich, before we sign off on this, is there anything else about this report or anything else that you want to touch on?
I think Chairman Powell's rewriting his speech for Friday. So
Yeah.
this is for us in the mortgage business. I mean, it's bad. There wasn't as many jobs as we thought. But for us in the mortgage business, that means that rates are going to likely to get better, which is always better. It's more purchasing power for our young buyers when rates come down, and that gives them the ability to buy the homes at the elevated prices over the last 4 years. Gives them the ability to at least play in the game.
Like you said, Jerome and his crew are up in Wyoming right now. I'm sure we'll be talking a little bit about that next week. But until then, thanks so much for being here, Rich. Thanks everyone out there for watching and listening. And we'll catch you next time on Today in Mortgages. Today in Mortgages is produced by Network Funding LP, which is an equal housing lender, NMLS 2297. The content of this program is meant to be a commentary on mortgage and real estate news, and any discussion of rates and or products should not be taken as an individual mortgage or home buying advice or pricing estimates. And any commentary on this show should not be considered a promise to make a loan. All applicants for a loan must qualify, and you should consult a professional regarding your individual loan scenarios for your financial situation. Visit our website at nflp.com/licenses for all state licensing and other legal information.